All right, let's jump back in time. We're going to step into the world of a specific person, a 16-year-old kid trying to figure out his place in 1840s Massachusetts. This is the story of Isaac Seaver.
So this is where it all starts. Not with some big, grand event, but with a sound. For Isaac, living on a farm, the day didn't kick off with the sunrise. It started with the rooster. That was the alarm clock, the signal that the relentless rhythm of work was about to begin all over again.
And here's our setting. We're not in a huge city like Boston or New York. No, we're in Westminster, a little farming town, maybe 1,500 people total. You have to understand, this wasn't just a place on a map. It was its own little world, a world where your life was completely dictated by the seasons, the church, and your neighbors.
So what did a day actually look like for a teenager back then? I mean, this was a world with no electricity, no running water. Every single moment from the crack of dawn till your head hit the pillow was pretty much accounted for.
Okay, what gets me about this is just the raw discipline of it all. Think about it. Waking up in the pitch dark, the shock of freezing cold water on your face, pulling on clothes that your mom literally wove by hand, and then a quick, no-nonsense breakfast of cornmeal mush. This wasn't a choice, you know? It was just the unbreakable routine of survival.
And he wasn't going through this alone. Isaac was part of a big, crowded, blended family, which was super common back then when mortality rates were high. His mom, Abigail, she ran the whole household. His relationship with his stepfather was respectful, but maybe a little distant. The point is, everyone under that one roof had a job to do, a part to play in the family's machinery.
So, after that quick breakfast and the morning farm chores, Isaac's real workday started. But here's the thing, he wasn't destined to be a farmer. His future was being hammered out, literally, in the fire and the noise of the town smithy. And this is the greeting he got pretty much every day from his mentor, the master blacksmith, Ezra Houghton. You can just picture this guy, right? Barrel-chested, powerful arms, kind of gruff. This little daily ritual, even when Isaac was early, it was all part of the training, a way to keep him on his toes.
But Ezra wasn't just some grumpy boss. He was a teacher. And behind all that grumbling, there was real affection and a serious commitment to passing on his craft. Every spark that flew from the anvil, every little piece of instruction, was part of a bigger transformation, shaping Isaac from just a boy with a strong back into a truly skilled tradesman.
You know, Isaac wasn't just swinging a hammer around. He was learning a deeply complex and absolutely essential skill, forge welding. It took perfect timing, a ton of strength, and his intuitive feel for the metal. A good blacksmith was the backbone of a farming community, fixing plows, shoeing horses, making tools. He was vital.
And to do that, Ezra taught him to read the glow of the iron, kind of like a sailor reads the stars. Each one of these colors you see here means a very specific temperature, a very specific property of the metal. If you get it too hot, the metal just burns up. Too cold, and it won't stick. This was the secret language of the forge, and Isaac was becoming fluent.
But look, a 16-year-old's life, even in 1840, wasn't all about work. Isaac's world was totally woven into the social life of his little town, and that had its own rhythms and rituals.
This timeline just shows you how predictable his life was, and in a way, how comforting. 5.5 days of really hard labor, followed by this precious day and a half for community, for socializing, and for worship. This structure gave life meaning, and it was a much-needed break from the daily grind. And Saturday afternoons, they were for this, town ball. Just imagine a rougher, way more chaotic version of baseball, played with all your friends right on the town green. It was a chance to blow off steam, to laugh, to compete, and honestly, to just be a teenager. And of course, in the middle of all the work and all the games, romance starts to creep into the picture. For Isaac, his attention was zeroing in on Cynthia Gates, a distant cousin. You see, social events like church or town get-togethers, those were the only real chances for young men and women to even talk to each other. I mean, this is just that timeless moment, right? Your friend giving you that little push. With this nudge, Isaac started trying to figure out the incredibly formal and, let's be honest, nerve-wracking world of 19th century courtship. It wasn't about dating. It was a series of these small, totally public, approved steps, like asking to walk a girl home from church, that might, just maybe, lead to something more.
So as the year goes on, all these different pieces, the hard labor, the community, this budding romance, they're all changing Isaac. He's crossing that invisible but really profound line between being a boy and becoming a man.
This slide really just captures that whole transformation perfectly. You have the physical changes, right? His hands becoming callous, that's the mark of a working man. But it was more than that. He wasn't just learning anymore. Local farmers were starting to ask for his work specifically. He was earning respect, and in the eyes of the whole town, he was becoming a good prospect for marriage, a responsible young man with a valuable trade.
And remember this number. In a town of only 1,500 people, everybody knew your business. Everybody was watching your progress. His reputation was his most valuable asset. His future seemed so clear, so defined, a whole life to be lived right there within the familiar borders of Westminster.
But, he was still 16, and like any 16-year-old, he had dreams that went way beyond those town lines. He'd read newspapers about the world outside, imagined setting up a shop in Boston, or maybe even heading west. But in the light of day, he knew his reality was right here. And he found this deep sense of dignity and satisfaction in that, in the promise of honest work and having a real place in his community.
So his path seems completely laid out, right? It's all set in stone. But life is rarely that simple, is it? A 16-year-old in 1840 could plan his future all he wanted, but he could never, ever account for the massive twists of history, love, and fate that were waiting just over the horizon.
Because the life he imagined was not the life he would end up living. Not even close. The girl he admired wouldn't be his wife. The peace of his small town would eventually be shattered by a call to war. This young blacksmith, standing right on the edge of what he thought was a predictable future, was about to step into an extraordinary life, one he could never have imagined, forged not just in fire and iron, but in the wild, unpredictable currents of history itself.